Chapter 384, Sudden Change 1. In a training ground within the inner court of Heaven and Earth Society. Yip Waixian, the second disciple of Sun Yun, the bright blade king of the Five Kings and a high-ranking official of Heaven and Earth Society, wore an expression of disbelief. Huff. Huff. A man in his mid-30s with short facial hair was exhaling rough breaths. He was Wu Horang, Yip Waixian's senior brother, the Grand Chief of the Jiagual clan, and one of the Five Tigers, considered the top expert of the younger generation within Heaven and Earth Society. Drip. Blood dripped from Wu Horang's right hand holding a saber. Impossible. Senior brother had lost. What seemed unthinkable had become reality. Excellent. A middle-aged man covered in scars opened his mouth. He was none other than Sun Yun, the bright blade king. Sun Yun also wore a quite surprised expression, and for good reason. The newly accepted youngest disciple had defeated his senior brother Wu Horang, overturning expectations for the duel. That new disciple was none other than Ma Qiuqian. I've been putting in a lot of effort lately, but to this extent. Ma Qiuqian was the one he had brought in as a card, to forcibly restrain that guy in place of Mok Jiangun from Corpse Blood Valley. Of course he had chosen him because he possessed talent and spirit no less than that guy, and that choice had not been wrong. This guy was also a genius whose talent had not yet fully blossomed. He never imagined he would be able to defeat even Wu Horang, whom he had designated as his successor, in just a few months. Interesting. It was truly a curious thing. To think that both of the guys from Yun Moksword Manor he had brought as hostages would end up defeating his disciples. If they weren't from the righteous faction, he would want to designate them as successors. It was regrettable, but he would have to be satisfied with taking them as disciples. Crunch crunch. Ma Qiuqian's right arm, which had swollen black, returned to its original state. Since he became able to somewhat control the great technique of reversed blood through his teachings, he had improved rapidly, and Sun Yun became curious about where his limits might be. Clench. As the master looked at Ma Qiuqian with a satisfied expression, Wu Horang bit his lip hard. How had it come to this? He had been putting even more effort into cultivating his martial arts to get revenge on that guy. But he never thought he would end up losing even to that guy's younger brother. That expression on his master's face only appeared when he was truly pleased. Ah. This is the worst. It felt like the Mok family had taken everything from him. That guy's brother had taken his master's favor, and that guy had taken the heart of the woman he loved. Since he had said he would establish a hierarchy, young Lady Wai Soyun had been keeping her distance and not meeting subordinates privately. She had relied on him before that guy appeared. Grind. Wu Horang, who had been biting his lips so hard that blood flowed, finally cupped his hands in salute to his master, Bright Blade King Sun Yun, and left the training ground with large strides. Sun Yun watched him go with a faint sigh. Although he understood his defeated disciples' feelings, he had no comfort to offer in his teachings. For someone who would become his successor, he only hoped they would overcome it themselves. And a close rival will make you grow even more. Hey. Yip Waixian hurriedly ran to catch up with his senior brother Wu Horang. Senior brother. Despite Yip Waixian's call, Wu Horang kept walking, but he had to stop when Yip Waixian blocked his path. Wu Horang opened his mouth with an unpleasant voice. What are you doing? Senior brother. No matter how I think about it, this isn't right. What do you mean? How could master do this to you unless he's lost his mind? So this is what he wanted to say. Although Wu Horang had lost to that guy today, Yip Waixian had already lost to Ma Qiuqian before. He seemed to have been holding back his complaints out of pride since then. But now that even he had lost to that guy, was he using this as a pretext to voice his complaints? If that's what you want to talk about, step aside. Senior brother. A duel is just a duel. With those words, Wu Horang tried to walk past Yip Waixian. Then Yip Waixian raised his voice. Are you some kind of saint to keep enduring every time, senior brother? What? We're about to lose everything we have to those damn Mok bastards and you're trying to endure it? This isn't patience, it's foolishness. Grab. No sooner had those words ended than Wu Horang grabbed his collar. Do you really want to die? Why are you trying to take out your anger on me? Isn't there someone else you should really be angry at? What? I mean those Mok bastards. You're really being insufferable. It's not about being insufferable. If we don't deal with them, we senior and junior brothers will really lose everything. Do you intend to regret it when that time comes? At Yip Weixian's words, Wu Horang's pupils shook slightly. He had ignored it, thinking it was just the outburst of an immature junior brother, but he too was human. Of course, his discontent had reached its limit. How could he not have the urge to strike down the two mock brothers right now? But, his pride wouldn't allow it. Overwhelming someone with skill is one thing, but using underhanded tactics or scheming is what lesser people do. And if he did that, would his master or young lady Wai Soyun, whom he serves as his lord, truly acknowledge him? They wouldn't. Rather, they would be deeply disappointed. That's why he needs to use this bitterness as nourishment to become stronger. He can only achieve what he wants by overwhelming the mock brothers with skill. Smack. Wu Horang let go of the collar he was holding and roughly pushed Yip Weixian away, saying, "Stop talking nonsense and put more effort into cultivating your martial arts. Senior brother. I can listen to your complaints all you want, but give up on thinking of doing anything beyond that. If you can't do it with your own strength, it's all meaningless. That's all the advice I can give you." "How?" "I'm leaving." With those words, Wu Horang left without even pretending to listen. Yip Weixian glared at him with resentful eyes. He thought his senior brother would understand his feelings since they were in similar situations, but being pushed away like this made him incredibly resentful. Bang! Yip Weixian, angry, kicked the wall and then went somewhere. Someone was watching him from behind. It was Ma Qiuqian. "Hugh." Ma Qiuqian shook his head. He had followed, thinking Yip Weixian might try something when he saw him following his senior brother. But fortunately, senior brother Wu Horang's pride was too strong to fall for his tricks. If he had joined hands with Yip Weixian, it would have become quite uncomfortable. "I need to get stronger, I can't be hindered now." His goal wasn't these two senior and junior brothers. Although they were half-brothers, he had believed they shared the same blood, but his goal was to take revenge on Mok Jiangun, who had stabbed him in the back, and to set justice right again. "It won't be long. I'll take you down with my own hands." "Hey." Yip Weixian, who had been using his lightness skill to head somewhere for a while, stopped and surveyed his surroundings. Then he headed towards what looked like a warehouse building with few people around. Once inside, Yip Weixian, clap clap, clap, clap clap, clapped his hands in a regular pattern. Then the dark warehouse lit up and someone revealed themselves. That person was Brother Emo. It was Emo Yak, who could be called the right-hand man of Na Yel Riang, the first disciple of the Heaven and Earth Society head. How was he waiting for Yip Weixian in such a secretive place? The reason was soon revealed. Emo Yak, holding a lantern, smiled and asked, "So, did you succeed in persuading Brother Wu?" At this question, Yip Weixian shook his head with a sigh. As if he had expected this response, Emo Yak shrugged his shoulders. From the start, he had predicted that Yip Weixian would fail. Having contacted Wu Horang several times before to persuade him to serve the first disciple Na Yel Riang, he knew well how stubborn he was. He had somewhat guessed that someone with such strong pride would never join them. But with the variable of Ma Qiuqian, he thought there might be a possibility, but even that didn't seem to be of much use. Well, it doesn't matter. Wu Horang was dispensable anyway. "Brother Emo, if you give me a little more time." Pat pat. Emo Yak patted his shoulder as if comforting him and said, "It's all right. You can persuade Brother Wu slowly. More importantly, the first disciple has high expectations for you." "Is that true?" "Of course it is." Emo Yak's mouth corners twitched upwards at Yip Weixian's face full of expectation. In truth, Wu Horang was a troublesome piece due to his stubbornness. On the other hand, there was no better piece to use than someone overflowing with greed and jealousy. You could paint any picture you wanted with such a person. Late at night, someone was pouring alcohol on a tombstone. It was Ho Zhang Hyok, the Grand Chief of the Destruction Clan. He was the child of Ho Taegang, the axe-destroying king, one of the Five Kings and the true first peak of the Five Peak Society led by Zhang Nungake, the second disciple of the Heaven and Earth Society head. Of course, this was the case a few months ago. What was inside that body now was not Ho Zhang Hyok himself, but Wai Mengqion, the second peak who had become a vengeful spirit. Hugh. Wai Mengqion, who had taken over Ho Zhang Hyok's body, let out a long sigh. He always felt uneasy whenever he came here. This was because the name engraved on the tombstone was Wai Mengqion. To think I'd be looking at my own dead body's grave with these two eyes I've longed for all my life. Gulp gulp. Wei Mengqion drank from the bottle he had been pouring on the tombstone. His wish as a blind person had been to see. But who could have imagined he would end up seeing like this? Should I be satisfied with living like this even though I've lost my body? He always felt complicated whenever he saw the tombstone. Even so, he had no choice. Having become Mok Jiongun's spirit servant and formed a connection, he had to follow his orders. As he was drinking the remaining alcohol, it happened. Clink. Wei Mengqion put down the bottle and tilted his head back. Swish. A sharp blade energy brushed past over his tilted head. It was saber energy. Wei Mengqion, who had avoided the saber energy, hurriedly used his movement technique to create distance behind him. His eyes flickered as he created distance. The one who had sent the saber energy towards him was none other than First Disciple? It was First Disciple Na Yelriang. Na Yelriang smiled and said, "No matter how much you miss your dead old comrade, it's dangerous to wander alone in times like these." Despite his smiling face, his words were utterly brutal. Wei Mengqion's gaze sharpened as he glared at Na Yelriang. As bold as ever. He had been inwardly worried about his recent movements to properly establish a succession structure, but he didn't expect him to target him so openly. At this, Wei Mengqion gripped the handle of the axe on his back and said, "If I die, you'll have to face the alliance of your two junior brothers head-on. Are you sufficiently prepared?" "Well, that's not for you to worry about." No sooner had those words ended than Na Yelriang's figure scattered like smoke. "Isn't this convincing enough?" Pat. First Disciple Na Yelriang put his arm around someone's shoulder as he spoke. That someone was looking at the corpse of the dead Hojong Hyok, Wei Mengqion, with bewildered eyes. It was none other than Yip Weixian, the second disciple of Bright Blade King Sun Yun. He really killed him. Yip Weixian was inwardly at a loss. Just this evening at the dinner, he had been in such a good mood. This was because First Disciple Na Yelriang had said he would accept him into his ranks and even held a drinking party. But now, by his hand, a subordinate of the second disciple Jiang Nungake had died. This alone was a huge matter. But the problem was that behind Hojong Hyok was not only the second disciple but also his father, axe-destroying King Ho Taegang. To kill the child of one of the 8 stars. Axe-destroying King Ho Taegang. He was one of the 8 stars who could be called the highest experts in the current martial arts world. He never thought he would kill the child of such a person so recklessly. What was even more bewildering was this why he asked me to show him my saber technique? Na Yelriang had killed Hojong Hyok by imitating part of the saber technique he had shown. To anyone watching, it would look like it was done by someone from his sect. Yip Weixian now realized his true purpose. It's to break up the alliance between Master and the axe-destroying King No, between disciple Jiang Nungake and young lady Wei Soyun. Clench. Strength entered Yip Weixian's hand. He regretted it, thinking, oh no, but it was already too late. What had happened couldn't be undone, and if he tried to reveal the truth now, his life would be as good as forfeit. Swish. While he was in this bewildered state, the vengeful spirit that had been possessing the dead Hojong Hyok's body slipped out. This vengeful spirit was Wei Mengqion. Wei Mengqion, forced to come out due to the death of the physical body, clicked his tongue. This was because he understood First Disciple Na Yelriang's purpose. He's made it look like the axe-destroying king's child died at the hands of the Bright Blade King's disciples, so the two kings will surely clash. If that happens, the power of the alliance will be dispersed. He had thought it strange that he was using saber techniques instead of sword techniques. Although he had thought Na Yelriang wasn't the type to sit back and watch, he truly was a formidable person. But even he had failed to predict one thing. It was his own possession. If he informed Go Chan, who was possessing second disciple Jiang Nungake's body, he could reveal the truth. If that happened, first disciple Na Yelriang would have to face the anger of the two kings instead. All his carefully laid schemes will have been in vain. It was at that very moment. Swish. Something sliced through Wei Mengqion's body. Panicking, he turned his head, and there he saw first disciple Na Yelriang, who had removed the eye patch on his right eye. An eye with a golden hue and a pupil as small as a dot. It exuded the ferocity of a savage beast rather than a human, and that small focal point of the eye was directed at him. He can see me. He was perceiving him accurately. Chapter 385. Sudden Change 2. The vengeful spirit Wei Mengqian couldn't hide his bewilderment as he faced the golden eyes staring directly at him. Then young Master Na Yelriang raised the corner of his mouth and said, "Well, this is interesting. So vengeful spirits actually exist. How?" He was definitely aware of Wei Mengqian's presence. Wei Mengqian didn't know what to do. He needed to escape this place, but he couldn't move since young Master Na Yelriang had sliced his spiritual body in half. Though he didn't understand why this was happening, he had to flee quickly to alert others about Na Yelriang's schemes and his ability to see spiritual bodies. Just then, grab! Na Yelriang's hand seized Wei Mengqian's neck. Wei Mengqian's eyes widened in shock. Not only could Na Yelriang see him, but he could also grasp a spiritual body as if it were solid? How was this possible? As Wei Mengqian marveled at this, Na Yelriang raised the corner of his mouth and said, "But you know what? Why does the vengeful spirit that came out of Ho Zhanghyok's body resemble Wei Mengqian?" At these words, Wei Mengqian immediately froze. Young Master Na Yelriang's residence. Na Yelriang, who had returned after finishing his business, snorted and spoke to someone. "You come and go as if this were your own home now." At his words, someone emerged from the shadows beside a pillar in the courtyard. It was an envoy from the Elder Council, his face covered with a veil due to horrible burn scars. "Even if it's the Elder Council, you should show some restraint. There's no place within the inner city that escapes Master's eyes." "I've been as discreet as possible, young Master." Na Yelriang shook his head at the envoy's words. While he had hoped for active support from the Elder Council, their overzealous involvement was proving to be quite troublesome in a different sense. If these retired members kept interfering, they were bound to draw attention. As long as he hadn't surpassed the society leader in martial arts, caution was necessary. Just then the envoy from the Elder Council spoke with sudden interest. "By the way, young Master, you seem to be holding something interesting in your hand." Na Yelriang raised an eyebrow at this comment. It was understandable, given that he was currently holding a vengeful spirit in his hand, its limbs severed and writhing in agony. "You can see this?" Na Yelriang's bewilderment was simple to understand. The envoy from the Elder Council was blind, having lost both eyes to burns. While heightened other senses could be attributed to losing sight, this was an entirely different matter. The envoy approached and said, "Have you already forgotten who brought you those eyes, young Master? Are you saying I can see this because of these eyes?" "Of course. Those eyes are from a spirit beast-level evil spirit, completely different in caliber from the eyes you had before. That's why you can even see vengeful spirits. That may explain me, but how can you see it? Are you just pretending to be blind?" "How could that be? I truly cannot see with my eyes. However, I have achieved spiritual enlightenment, so I can perceive such things." Na Yelriang snorted at these words. He really was an unpleasant fellow. Even though Na Yelriang's martial arts had been progressing rapidly since obtaining these demonic eyes after his seclusion, he still couldn't clearly see the limits of his power. Could this mere envoy from the Elder Council really be a match for him? As his doubts grew, he had tried to investigate the envoy's background several times, but each time the man vanished like a ghost, leaving no trail to follow. "For now, think that you're playing me like a puppet in your hands." He wasn't someone to be trifled with so easily. It wasn't them using him, but the other way around. Once he achieved his goals and their usefulness diminished, he would show them the true meaning of being discarded like worn-out shoes. But not now. "Yelmayong, was it? Whether you've achieved spiritual enlightenment or not is none of my business. Get lost." "Already dismissing me? A guest from the Primal Killing Pavilion will be arriving soon." "Primal Killing Pavilion? My, what a coincidence." "What?" "As it happens, I was waiting to inform you about something, and seeing that you're looking for the Primal Killing Pavilion, this is perfect timing." "What do you mean?" "You won't need to wait for the guest from the Primal Killing Pavilion. Please follow me." The office of the Primal Killing Pavilion's main branch leader. As Na Yelriang entered with his hands behind his back, his eyes caught sight of something strange. There in Seoke, the leader of Primal Killing Pavilion, was visible, his skin pallid and his appearance grotesque. With black smoke emanating from his mouth, in Seoke's face was contorted in agony, yearning for something, but his arms and legs were restrained, preventing him from moving. Na Yelriang asked Yelmayong, the envoy from the Elder Council. What's wrong with him? Has he been poisoned? Why don't you look with those eyes of yours, young master? Look with my eyes? Puzzled, Na Yelriang lowered the eye patch covering his right eye. As he did so and gazed at Nsioke with his small, golden-focused pupil, Na Yelriang furrowed his brow. This was because he couldn't sense even a trace of life force from Nsioke. He was no different from a corpse. What is this? It's a living corpse spirit. What? Using the forbidden secret art of 6 people spirit summoning technique, pavilion leader Nsioke has become a living corpse spirit. A corpse spirit? Yes. Na Yelriang asked, unable to comprehend. I heard this man was a highly skilled diviner personally recruited by the society leader. How did he end up like this? This was the inner city of the Heaven and Earth Society. How could something like this happen in a place so thoroughly protected from outside threats? As Na Yelriang wondered, the envoy Yelmayong answered. It seems another diviner was involved. Another diviner? Yes, normally someone of pavilion leader Nsioke's caliber, being a high-level diviner, wouldn't be easily overcome. But if the opponent is even more powerful, the situation changes. Are you saying an even stronger diviner was involved? Yes. Have you found out who it was? We have a suspicion. Who might that be? The branch leader of Harmonious Immortal Pavilion. The branch leader of Harmonious Immortal Pavilion? Just as martial artists have a hierarchy of martial prowess, diviners have their own ranking system. Those who have reached the pinnacle are called divine-level diviners. The titles given to diviners are divided into conveying, profound, technique, moon, sun, and divine. Among these, the highest is referred to as divine-level diviner. So this branch leader of Harmonious Immortal Pavilion is a divine-level diviner? Is quite renowned too. And quite troublesome due to their unique technique. Unique technique? Do you mean what was done to pavilion leader Nsioke? No, this is a forbidden technique with rather low utility that anyone could learn if they practiced. Though it's prohibited. Then what are you referring to? A technique that folds space. Folding space. Young Master Na Yelriang showed interest in this. Doesn't folding space mean being able to move freely to any location? In some ways, it was a convenient yet potentially very dangerous technique depending on how it's used. Yes, you can think of it as a type of space compression. It's a unique technique that only they can use, having mastered mystical arts close to immortal techniques. Only they can do it? Yes, I believe even within Harmonious Immortal Pavilion, only they are capable of it. At this response, Na Yelriang raised an eyebrow as he looked at Yelmayong and said, For an envoy of the Elder Council, you seem to know quite a lot about occult arts. Including bringing me these eyes. I'm just interested in various odd things. Can this really be called mere interest? I'm simply trying to help with the great work you're going to accomplish, young master. Please don't be so wary. Na Yelriang snorted at these words. The more he learned about this man, the more his wariness increased. But one question arose. How can you be so certain that Harmonious Immortal Pavilion is behind this? To this question Yelmayong bowed his head and answered, Regrettably, I narrowly missed capturing the woman controlling pavilion leader Nsioke. It was my oversight. Woman. Yes, quite an audacious wench. Though he couldn't see her appearance due to his lost eyesight, he remembered her voice and the scent from her body. He couldn't catch her because she escaped by opening space, but as far as he knew, even that technique had weaknesses. She probably couldn't have gone too far. Judging that she was still within the inner city, he had the surrounding areas blocked off. We'll catch her soon, so don't worry. But before that, I think we can teach that audacious wench a bit of a lesson. What do you mean? That vengeful spirit you captured, young master. May I borrow it for a moment? I haven't yet extracted the exact information about who's behind this from it. Na Yelriang had been planning to seek help from Primal Killing Pavilion, a group of diviners, because no matter how much he injured the spirit body, it kept its mouth shut. Vengeful spirits are different from humans. You can't extract information by simply inflicting pain on the spirit body. Are you saying there's another way? Yes. Through this method, we can even track down who's behind the vengeful spirit. Oh. Is that so? Will you entrust it to me? At this, Na Yelriang handed over the vengeful spirit of Wai Mengqion, whom he had been holding by the nape of the neck. Like Na Yelriang, Yelmayong could also directly grasp the vengeful spirit with his hand. Holding the vengeful spirit, Yelmayong immediately formed a simple hand seal with his left hand. Lim. Bayong. Gi. Soon, a thick smoke began to seep out of Yelmayong's palm. Hiss 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 hiss. It was a strange occurrence as there was no fire lit. As the smoke thickened, the corners of Yelmayong's mouth turned up in a sinister smile. When Na Yelriang looked puzzled. As I thought, it's definitely a spirit servant. Spirit servant? Yes. It's a type of technique where one forcibly creates a subordinate by forming a spiritual connection. However, it's quite unexpected. Unexpected. Yes. For someone of diviner level like the harmonious immortal pavilion leader or their disciples, it should be quite easy to control a lower-level vengeful spirit as a spirit servant. But this seems uncharacteristic for someone who practices mystical arts, wouldn't you say? What are you talking about? Na Yelriang asked, clearly not understanding. Yelmong shook his head and replied, never mind. In any case, they must pay the price for interfering. How do you mean? As I mentioned earlier, spirit servants have a spiritual connection. This connection is essentially a link between souls. Linking souls. Yes. Therefore, if we forcibly sever this connection, the spirit servant will be annihilated, and its master will receive a strong spiritual impact. Oh, is that so? By adding a bit more to this process, we should be able to quickly locate where that audacious wench is. You sound quite confident. It's not particularly difficult. Na Yelriang's eyes narrowed at this response. He knew this man was extraordinary, but seeing his proficiency in such dark arts made him even more curious about his true identity. Just then Yelmayong formed a hand seal with his left hand and stroked the vengeful spirit's head with his right. Then suddenly, what's this? Na Yelriang's right eye saw something like a red thread. But the moment it touched Yelmayong's hand, crack! With a bright spark, the red thread was severed. Along with this, Yelmayong grasped the severed red thread and formed the immovable mind seal with both hands, beginning to chant something that sounded like an incantation. Heaven's essence, earth's essence, sun and moon's essence, heaven and earth's combined essence, sun and moon's combined light, spirit and ghost's combined form, 20 combined with my heart combined with this heart, heaven's heart, 10,000 hearts, 10,000 hearts, all combined with my heart, Supreme Elder Lord, urgent as the law commands. The method he was chanting was a type of summoning harmony method, which usually requires a talisman, but he was forming the technique using only the incantation. It was a level of skill that would astound other diviners if they saw it. However, crack 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 crack. Suddenly Yelmayong, who had his hands clasped together, staggered backward. Then, pooh! He spat out a mouthful of black blood like a fountain. Chapter 386, Sudden Change 3. There was a seductive woman wearing provocative clothes that revealed her cleavage, massaging someone's legs. Her name was Ha-Chai-Rin. She was the heir to the Flying Killing sect and destined to inherit the title of Flying Killing Yama's guest, one of the 4 great assassins of the current era. Why was someone like her in this situation? Damn it all. Ha-Chai-Rin had cursed inwardly dozens, no hundreds of times. If she had just chosen a different final target for her 100 days 100 kills, she would have already ascended to become the sect leader. However, she had failed the 100 days 100 kills. Moreover, her memories were incomplete ever since she visited the Yun Mok Sword Manor. She still couldn't understand why she was here in the Heaven and Earth Society. Can I escape from here? Honestly, there was no hope. Even though she was the heir destined to inherit the title of one of the 4 great assassins, this was the Heaven and Earth Society, one of the 3 major powers dividing the current martial arts world. And the person whose legs she was massaging was a disciple of the society leader who ruled this massive organization. Should I be satisfied just to have prolonged my life? For someone as hot-tempered and proud as her, this was an utterly unacceptable situation. If this damn bastard wasn't a disciple of the Heaven and Earth Society's society leader, she would have attempted to escape by any means, whether through poisoning or assassination. However, can't you massage properly? Why yes, sir. Ugh. Honestly, she was terrified. She had tried to escape and rebel several times, only to have her facial bones nearly caved in from the slaps she received from this man. After repeating this a few times, she became so scared that she would flinch reflexively just from him raising his hand. Seeing her become so docile, Go-chan, who had possessed the body of Jang Nungike, the second young master of the Heaven and Earth Society, snickered. It was truly a sight to behold. When he saw her again at the Yun Mok Sword Manor after his retirement, he thought everything had gone awry. But now the tables had completely turned. The heir destined to inherit the title of one of the world's 4 great assassins was now reduced to massaging the legs of a retired assassin from the Flying Killing sect while constantly watching his mood. The fortunes of war are unpredictable indeed. The ways of the world were truly unpredictable. It had been worth enduring all sorts of hardships while possessing that wench's body, thanks to his master, Mok Jung-un. Just as he was feeling satisfied with controlling her, suddenly, boom. At that moment the space rippled and a door made of smoke opened. Someone hurriedly rushed in. It was a cute-looking girl with short hair, dressed as a diviner. Go-chan recognized her immediately. Yeo Surin? Yeo Surin. She was a diviner dispatched under the orders of her master, the Harmonious Immortal Pavilion leader. She had formed a contract with Mok Jung-un and was controlling In Seok, the leader of Primal Killing Pavilion, who had become a living corpse spirit through the 6-people spirit summoning technique, managing the Primal Killing Pavilion. Why had she suddenly appeared here using her technique? Are you hurt? Go-chan jumped up in surprise and asked. Judging by her pale face and the blood spreading on her shoulder and abdomen, she seemed to be injured. Then she urged, "Step back." What? Along with this, Yeo Surin hurriedly rotated in a circle with her hand holding a protective charm. The door made of smoke quickly closed and disappeared. As it vanished completely, she exhaled roughly and slumped to the floor. Ha. No, what on earth happened for you to be in this state? We're in big trouble. Big trouble? What do you mean? They found out that the Primal Killing Pavilion leader has become a living corpse spirit. What? Is that true? More importantly, who discovered it? Wasn't it said that unless it was a diviner skilled enough to be called a high-level diviner or whatever, it wouldn't be discovered? As he wondered, Yeo Surin answered in a serious voice. I don't know. It was an incredible monster who could break my technique with just spiritual power in an instant. I'm not sure exactly, but you're saying they're formidable? It's not just formidable. Maybe. They might be a divine-level diviner or close to that level. How could such a diviner be here? Ugh. Go-chan quickly supported Yeo Surin as she was about to collapse. She asked him, Young Master Mok, where is young Master Mok? Not back yet. Go-chan shook his head as he answered. He also didn't know exactly where Mok Jung-un was or when he would return. Chong Ryong had informed him of the purpose for suddenly leaving, but that was all. Is there no way to find the young master? How could we find someone who's gone all the way to Kaifeng? Of course, being a spirit servant with a spiritual connection, he could find Mok Jung-un if he really tried, but the distance was too great now to pinpoint an exact location. However, one thing was certain. The fact that he, as a spirit servant, was fine meant that Mok Jung-un was also unharmed. Oh no, this is terrible. Someone with that level of skill in the mystic arts will surely try to track us in reverse. At her concern, Go-chan asked, In reverse? Are you saying my master might be in danger? To Go-chan's question, Yeo Surin answered with a meaningful voice. If the opponent is truly a diviner who has reached the realm of divine-level diviner, not just young Master Mok, but all of us might be in danger. 2 weeks later. During this time, the interior of the Heaven and Earth Society was facing a period of rapid change. The biggest incident was the rumor that spread about the society leader, who had been bedridden for 3 days, being in such poor condition that he had even lost consciousness. Normally, if there were signs of such rumors spreading, the society leader's direct squad and intelligence unit would move swiftly to cut them off in advance. But this time was different. Too many people had witnessed doctors frequently entering and exiting the inner sanctum where the society leader resided. The society leader was someone who didn't even allow doctors in when he was bedridden. For doctors to be coming and going like this, the society leader's condition must have deteriorated to the worst. This rumor spread rapidly throughout the entire organization, causing the internal atmosphere to become increasingly unstable. Even those who had firmly maintained neutrality until now were beginning to move. In a situation where a successor had not been clearly determined, such internal movements might have been a natural progression. Amidst this situation, there was another incident that caused an uproar within the organization, both openly and secretly, similar to the society leader's illness. It was the fury of axe-destroying King Ho Taegang. This was because his son Ho Jong-hyok, the great commander of the indestructible unit and known as the Five Steel Axe Slayer, had been murdered. The child of axe-destroying king, one of the 5 kings who could be considered the highest-ranking officials of the organization and one of the 8 stars regarded as the supreme masters of the current martial world, had been killed. Naturally, the organization was thrown into chaos. But here another problem arose. The prime suspect in this already major incident was none other than Wu Horang, the chief disciple of Bright Blade King Sun Yun. The cause of death left on Ho Jong-hyok's body was traces of the transcendent realm swordsmanship. And those sword traces were none other than the Bright Sun swordsmanship, the unique skill of Bright Blade King Sun Yun. Upon confirming this, axe-destroying King Ho Taegang, without a moment's hesitation, pointed to Wu Horang, the disciple of Bright Blade King Sun Yun, as the culprit. It wasn't Bright Blade King himself. If it had been him, he would have cut down this child in 3 moves. Then the only one who could have killed this child is that guy. He believed it was Wu Horang, one of the 5 tigers. It wasn't someone like Yip Xian. His level of martial arts wasn't enough to kill Ho Taegang's son. Convinced that Wu Horang was the culprit, axe-destroying King Ho Taegang immediately went to find Bright Blade King Sun Yun to kill Wu Horang, which led to a fierce clash between the two. If Jang Nung Ak and Wai So Yun, the 2 disciples of the society leader, hadn't intervened, axe-destroying King Ho Taegang would have seen it through to the end. Please believe me. I am truly innocent. Of course, it also helped that Wu Horang, who had been accused as the culprit, came forward to explain himself. Ho Taegang, who had come mindlessly to kill him out of anger, regained his composure and also found his son Ho Jong-hyok's death suspicious. Certainly, those sword traces were undoubtedly from the Bright Sun swordsmanship, but Wu Horang clearly had no motive or reason to kill him. It might have been understandable before the second son Jang Nung Ak and the youngest Wai So Yun formed an alliance, but not now. Moreover, this is clearly intentional. Leaving the sword traces itself was full of malicious intent. Since it happened within the organization, it should have been concealed so that the culprit's identity couldn't be known. Because of this, axe-destroying King Ho Taegang backed down peacefully. Or more precisely, as compensation, I'll take your right index finger. In the end, he cut off and took one of Wu Horang's fingers. Although Bright Blade King Sun Yun raged and tried to stop this, even he couldn't do anything when axe-destroying King Ho Taegang, one of the 8 stars, was determined. Or rather, since Wu Horang himself cut off his finger, the fight had no choice but to subside. However, this caused axe-destroying King Ho Taegang and Bright Blade King Sun Yun to completely turn their backs on each other, and the repercussions eventually led to the dissolution of the alliance between Jang Nung Ak and Wai So Yun. Gi Okarayan, the first daughter of Gi Hei, the Sun Rock Valley master who could be considered Wai So Yun's close associate, spoke to her with a somewhat disappointed tone. Deception is fine, but lady, was it really necessary to cut off Great Commander Wu's right index finger? For a swordsman, the index finger is. We should be satisfied with this much, Okarayan. But originally, at least an arm should have been cut off. But axe-destroying King held back his anger and compromised. He held back his anger? Yes. If it had gone according to the enemy's intentions, at least that much should have been done. That way, the one who orchestrated this situation would be fooled, right? Exactly. But axe-destroying King also didn't like falling for the enemy's ploy, and he felt it was excessive to cut off Commander Wu's arm when he wasn't the real culprit, so he ended it at this level. I see. Gi Okarayan sighed. Though she understood, as someone who admired Wu Horang, it was just heartbreaking. They were acting out breaking the alliance and cutting off Brother Wu's finger to make the enemy reveal themselves. Do you think the culprit will move according to our intentions? I'm not sure. As I said earlier, unless we had shown Bright Blade King and axe-destroying King fighting fiercely to the point where someone got hurt after cutting off at least an arm, I'm not confident that elder brother will be fooled by this much. The person they all considered to be the real culprit was young Master Na Yulriang's faction. He was the only one who would gain the greatest benefit from the fight between Axe-Destroying King and Bright Blade King. That's why they had resolved it through dialogue, but they cut off Wu Horang's finger and officially broke the alliance for the sake of appearances. Young Master Na Yulriang will surely approach Axe-Destroying King, right? Probably so. It was Axe-Destroying King Ho Taegang who was in the position of having to be satisfied with just a finger despite losing his son and being unable to avenge him even in his anger. Naturally, Na Yulriang had to approach him. That would make it easier to draw him into his own faction. If the young master approached in this way, Axe-Destroying King Ho Taegang planned to join his faction and implement a strategy of suffering a flesh wound. However, Master's worsening illness is a variable. After the sudden rumors of Master's critical conditions spread, the young Master's active movements had ceased. For almost 3 days at that. It was unlike the young Master. They had anticipated that someone as cunning as him might notice their scheme, but his silence was making them uneasy. If Master were to really pass away at a time like this, the situation would become uncontrollable. Wai Soyun let out a deep sigh. It was frustrating. What would he have done if he were here? If he were here at a time like this, it would have been reassuring and comforting no matter what happened, but now it was just bitter. Where on earth had he disappeared to? According to what she had heard from the Vice Society leader before, it seemed he was absent for a confidential mission, but it was taking too long. What kind of mission could he be on? She worried that he might have gone outside the organization and something might have happened to him. Jayungan. Just as she was inwardly longing for Mok Jayungan, someone urgently knocked on the door. Thump thump. Pai lady. It was the voice of Yang Il, the small branch leader of the Transient Sword Group. Hearing his urgent voice, Wai Soyun frowned with anxiety and said, "Come in." At this, Yang Il opened the door and entered, catching his breath after rushing here. However, for someone who had come in such a hurry, his expression wasn't that bad. As she was wondering about this, Yang Il said, "My lady, Mok Jayung. I mean young Master Mok has appeared." She, who had been sitting elegantly holding a teacup, forgot her composure and unconsciously jumped to her feet. Chapter 387, Return 1. In the office of the Vice Society leader at the main branch of Heaven and Earth Society's inner sanctum, Vice Society leader Mong Xiaoqian stared intently at someone for a long time with a fearsome expression. It was Mong Muyak, his son and the deputy leader of the Society Leaders Direct Squad who also commanded the intelligence department. The look in Vice Society leader Mong Xiaoqian's eyes as he gazed at Mong Muyak was peculiar. This was because he had initially called him in to reprimand him out of anger, but upon facing him, the atmosphere had changed and he regained his composure. This kid. He had changed. Originally, he always held a hint of fear when facing his father. But now he was looking straight into his eyes without the slightest tremor. Rather than defiance, it was clear confidence. Could it be that his martial prowess had increased? Before he left, he could gauge his level to some extent through his chi sense. But now he couldn't accurately determine his level. To be able to conceal one's chi from an opponent, one must be at least equal to or superior to them. That can't be. He had expected that this mission, being confidential and extremely difficult, would provide great experience and lead to some growth. But it seems to have far exceeded those expectations. Could it be that this child has reached a level nearly equal to his own or even approaching the wall? If that were the case, he should be happy as this was his son who would become the successor. But the current situation didn't allow for unrestrained joy. After staring at his son for a long while, Vice Society leader Mong Xiaoqian finally spoke in a low voice. "I need to hear 3 explanations from you. Please ask." The one who answered was his son Mong Muyak, the deputy leader of the Society Leaders Direct Squad and commander of the intelligence department. He was facing his father, the Vice Society leader Mong Xiaoqian, immediately after returning to the organization. Even if not maintaining periodic contact during your return was due to continuous pursuit, you should have known this was a confidential mission. Why did you enter through the main gate instead of the secret passage? Their mission was, as stated, confidential. Yet they had acted in a way that defied expectations. Because of this, by now various sects might have discovered the existence of the Holy Fire Priestess. Even if they had concealed her identity in a carriage, they couldn't be at ease. He was curious about the intention behind such an action. "Speak." I'll be frank, sir. Frank. Yes. What on earth are you saying? It was to show that we had returned. What? At these words from his son Mong Muyak, Vice Society leader Mong Xiaoqian raised an eyebrow. For a moment he was dumbfounded. Is this child serious? With this answer alone, this child had already disobeyed the orders of the society leader and himself. He had hoped there was some special reason like interference near the organization, but the worst possible answer came out. Have you forgotten what a confidential mission means? I know. But if we hadn't done this, you would have tried to kill young Master Mok Jung-un upon his return from completing the mission, father. You. Mong Xiaoqian's voice rose. This was related to his second question. His order had been to kill Mok Jung-un if he made any contact with the righteous sects or showed even the slightest suspicious behavior. All those involved in the confidential mission were prepared to sacrifice Mok Jung-un if necessary. He was essentially a disposable pawn. Thus, Vice Society leader Mong Xiaoqian was quite displeased that the man he had hoped would be dealt with before returning had come back safely. And, now, did you just call that guy young Master Mok Jung-un? Yes. Don't tell me you and he. It's not don't tell me. Mok Jung-un succeeded in his mission, so from that point he's the society leader's fourth disciple. Naturally he should be called young master, shouldn't he? At his son's response, Mong Xiaoqian was speechless with disbelief. Could it be that this child truly believes the society leader will accept that Mok Jung-un fellow as a disciple? Even he didn't understand why the society leader had shown such a whim, but the society leader was not in a state to take on any disciples right now. So you called him young master and disobeyed the organization's order because of that? Didn't I tell you? Are you trying to claim you disobeyed orders for fear of being discarded like a used tool? It's not a claim, it's a fact. You're disappointing this father for the first time. I only did what I had to do. Bang. As soon as those words ended, Mong Xiaoqian slammed down on the round table in front of him. As the table shattered and collapsed weakly, Mong Xiaoqian spoke with an angry voice. You don't realize what you've done. The last question seems meaningless now, so I'll replace it with an order. An order? Bring Mok Jung-un. No. That guy isn't necessary right now. Anyway, that guy would have many enemies even if left alone, so it didn't matter. Forget about Mok Jung-un for now. Bring the Holy Fire Priestess here immediately. The priority was to put out the immediate fire. When he ordered them to bring the Holy Fire Priestess, not only did they not use the secret passage, but they appeared boldly through the front gate, and even took a carriage to the Shadow Clan. This was clearly disobeying orders. However, since it was a secret order and the situation was unfavorable, he couldn't openly mobilize the society leader's direct squad, so he had no choice but to give this order to Mong Muyak. But, I cannot do that. What came out of Mong Muyak's mouth was a clear refusal. At this, the greatly angered Vice Society leader Mong Xiaoqian stood up abruptly and raised his voice. Are you really going to disobey the order? Disobeying the order was merely a matter of the method of return. More importantly, the young master requests that the society leader fulfill his promise and grant him a private audience. What? Fulfill the promise and grant a private audience? Did he just relay Mok Jung-un's wishes to him, his direct superior and father? These youngsters were truly crossing the line. At this, Mong Xiaoqian's hand moved. Pat. The table was already broken, and since he was standing and only 1.5 steps away, he was within immediate reach. As he tried to subdue him at once with the golden silk palm technique. Pak. Not only did Mong Muyak lightly block his technique, but he also pushed Vice Society leader Mong Xiaoqian back. Pushed back about 3 steps, Mong Xiaoqian's eyes widened. He had suspected it due to the chi sense, but this child's martial prowess had truly approached the wall. Even if he had survived a life-threatening crisis and returned safely, how could his capabilities have increased this much in just a few months? As he wondered, Mong Muyak spoke. Vice Society leader, no, father. Just as you chose to serve the society leader, I have chosen young Master Mok Jung-un. Now you're saying that. You may reprimand me now, father, but soon your thoughts will change. Around the same time, at the Shadow Clan's estate in the inner sanctum, Huan Yixian, the leader of the Shadow Clan and one of the 3 clan leaders who were high-ranking officials of the Heaven and Earth Society, had a look of bewilderment in his eyes after receiving an urgent message. This was because, according to the Shadow Clan warrior who brought him the message, Mok Jaeongun had not returned through the organization's secret passage but had entered through the main gate. Moreover, according to the warriors guarding the city gate, there was an old woman riding in the carriage. The Holy Fire Priestess. Shadow Clan leader Hwan Yixian was certain that the old woman was the Holy Fire Priestess as soon as he heard this. But what kind of bolt from the blue was this? It was good news that she, who could be considered the spiritual pillar of the Fire Faith Order, had escaped alive from the underground prison of the Imperial Palace. But bringing her here? What kind of act was this? I clearly gave the order. The order he had given to Mok Jaeongun was to divert the Holy Fire Priestess before returning to the Heaven and Earth Society. He had thought that with the guy's wit and skills he would succeed even in this dangerous mission. But a completely unexpected variable had occurred. What on earth have you done? He had trusted Mok Jaeongun because he was a fellow Fire Faith Order member and his disciple. However, from the moment he brought the Holy Fire Priestess here, he couldn't understand why the guy had done such a thing. If he had offered the Holy Fire Priestess to the society leader, it could have been dismissed as betrayal out of greed to become the fourth disciple, but he brought her to the Shadow Clan. Because of this, he found himself in an extremely difficult situation. Why? By bringing the Holy Fire Priestess to the Shadow Clan, all eyes from the society leader's direct squad and the intelligence department were now focused here. No, this was a situation worthy of suspicion. It meant he had brought someone to the Shadow Clan who was ordered to be brought in defiance of the society leader's orders. Shadow Clan leader Hwan Yixian's mind became complicated. What should he do about this? The one fortunate thing was that although the vice society leader and the society leader's direct squad had somehow managed to block and hide the information, the society leader's condition seemed to have reached a critical point. So, should I attempt to escape with the Holy Fire Priestess, even if it means abandoning the Foundation here? She held a very important position in the Order. As someone in the position of the Order's leader, he had a duty to protect her. If she falls into the society leader's hands, her safety would be in danger. He must make a decision one way or another. With that, Shadow Clan leader Hwan Yixian arrived at the rear garden of the estate where the carriage was said to have arrived. Upon arrival, Hwan Yixian immediately frowned. This was because Hwan Yixian had ordered to detain Mok Jaeongun and the carriage as soon as they arrived. It was to avoid suspicion since the society leader's direct intelligence department was watching. But all the Shadow Clan warriors in the rear garden were collapsed, and several masked individuals could be seen unconscious near the walls as well. What was going on here? Why were all of them in such a state? As Hwan Yixian wondered, his gaze turned towards the carriage. That is. In front of the carriage, he saw a horse with an enormous build incomparable to ordinary horses. Just looking at its fierce mane that seemed about to burst into flames, it was clearly an extraordinary steed. Someone was standing in front of it with their hands behind their back and... Jaeongun. At his call, the person standing with their hands behind their back lowered their arms and turned around. It was Mok Jaeongun. Mok Jaeongun smiled faintly and then, as if paying respects to his master, he put his hands together in a fist-palm salute and greeted him. It's been a long time, master. At this greeting, Shadow Clan leader Hwan Yixian, with eyes full of wariness, immediately moved his hand to the sword at his waist and said, "What is the meaning of this?" Hwan Yixian gestured towards the collapsed Shadow Clan warriors around them as he asked. To this question Mok Jaeongun shrugged and answered, "They're not dead." "That's not what I'm asking, is it?" The true intent of his question was not that. Not only had he brought the Holy Fire Priestess here, but he had also taken down all the Shadow Clan warriors who were ordered to surround them to avoid outside surveillance. This could only be seen as intentional in any way. To Hwan Yixian, whose hand was touching his sword, Mok Jaeongun said, "I've dealt with those watching as well, so you can speak freely." Mok Jaeongun pointed to two locations with his hand. Those were the western and southeastern walls, where the collapsed masked individuals were not people of the Shadow Clan. Hwan Yixian couldn't have been unaware of this. "You know very well that's not what I'm asking." Swish. At that moment Hwan Yixian frowned. This was because someone had placed the sharp tip of a sword against his back while he was holding his sword. "Please take your hand off your sword, Elder Clan leader." "No way." To his disbelief, It was none other than Bayok, his bodyguard and confidant. Chapter 388, Return to. At the same time, in young Master Na Yelriang's estate within the inner sanctum of Heaven and Earth Society, young Master Na Yelriang, sitting comfortably leaning against the head seat, downed a cup of alcohol in one gulp and then tossed it to the floor. Crash. As the cup shattered, the corners of Na Yelriang's mouth curled up. Seeing this, his confidant Mo Yak chuckled and said, "Are you that pleased?" "Of course I am." After his seclusion he had searched for that guy, but when he suddenly disappeared his enthusiasm had cooled for a while. Born with innate killing intent and devoid of emotions, he had lived a life without obstacles due to his natural martial talent. Because of this, no one except his master, the Heaven and Earth Society leader, and the 2 Five Kings who held the title of 8 stars, could arouse his interest. Even the disciples vying for the position of successor were mere youngsters to him, failing to evoke any response. But then that guy appeared. Mok Jiangyan. A monster he encountered for the first time in his life. He grew during their fight and surpassed the wall before even coming of age. Not only that, although he received help from Xiam Doquang later, he even managed to defeat Na Yelriang. Since then Na Yelriang found interest in life for the first time. Because he developed a genuine desire to kill someone. This was clearly an emotion. Clench. Na Yelriang clenched his fist and then relaxed it. How long had he been waiting for that guy to appear? "It's a confidential mission, so I cannot disclose it." "Is it inside or outside?" "I cannot disclose that either." The only thing he learned through the Vice Society leader was one fact. That the guy was carrying out a confidential mission for the society leader. Meanwhile, the society leader's condition had rapidly deteriorated, and he was momentarily caught up in contemplation due to a proposal brought to him by the Elder Council. And now finally that Mok Jiangyan had appeared. Thud. Young Master Na Yelriang stood up. Mo Yak frowned and said, "Young Master, surely you're not planning to go kill him right now? Is there any reason to wait longer?" "Not now." At those words, Na Yelriang looked at Mo Yak with cold eyes and said, "What do you mean not now? How long had he been waiting for the day to fight that guy again? And now was he trying to hold him back?" As he revealed his displeasure, Mo Yak, seeming to have read his mood, carefully said, "He has returned after completing a confidential mission given by the society leader. But isn't there something strange?" At these words, Na Yelriang raised an eyebrow and then answered, "He headed to the Shadow Clan without going to see Master, you say?" "Yes. And unlike when he disappeared, he appeared through the organization's main gate." At Mo Yak's words, Na Yelriang's eyes narrowed and the corners of his mouth lifted. He feared being discarded like a use tool, it seems. That's the only way to think of it for now. He probably doesn't know the society leader's condition yet, but seeing how he headed straight to the Shadow Clan, which could be considered an ally instead of the main branch. At this assessment Na Yelriang clicked his tongue. He had thought that despite being originally a hostage from the righteous faction, the guy had caught Master's eye and received a confidential mission due to his tremendous martial talent. But was he just a disposable pawn after all? To be held back by mere origins. Luck doesn't seem to be on his side. That's not for us to worry about. But we don't know yet. It could be that he feared being discarded, but there's also a slight chance he headed straight to the Shadow Clan on the society leader's orders. Was that it? Yes. What Mo Yak was saying they should be wary of was the latter possibility. If it was just the former, there wouldn't be any problem in dealing with him. However, if it was the latter, it would mean interfering with someone carrying out the society leader's confidential mission. So what do you suggest we do? There's no need for you to move directly or for us to reveal our hand, young master. Are you saying we should leave him be? No. We have the most suitable piece, don't we? Suitable piece. Oh. You mean him? At young Master Na Yelriang's words, Mo Yak nodded and answered with a faint smile. Yes. Weren't you planning to test him anyway? To see if he has truly turned his back on Miss Y Soyun's faction and Bright Blade King's side. Your cunning mind is indeed. I don't understand why you keep calling it cunning when there are better words like strategy or tactics. It's all the same. At young Master Na Yelriang's words, Mo Yak smacked his lips. Then he stood up and said, "Then I'll take your permission and set him in motion." Young Master Na Yelriang stared at Mo Yak. Although it would be easier to move directly than this method, it was certainly not a good situation to act rashly now. Therefore there was no harm in testing through that person. Do as you wish. Na Yelriang shrugged and sat down. As his permission was given, Mo Yak raised the corner of his mouth slyly and said, Even if he employs a strategy of suffering a flesh wound, unlike with Wei Soyun's faction he allied with or Wu Horang, Bright Blade King's chief disciple, he'll properly take action this time, even if just for show. If he's unlucky he might end up half-crippled. At these words Na Yelriang snorted. Although the opponent was the worst, if he became half-crippled from this, then he wasn't qualified to compete with himself now. Meanwhile, Shadow Clan leader Huan Yixian's expression hardened. Bayok, his bodyguard and confidant, was no different from his right arm. For such a person to suddenly aim a sword at his back, he couldn't help but be bewildered. He had personally selected Bayok when he was an orphan, taught him martial arts and raised him so he never had the slightest doubt about his loyalty. But now this person had betrayed him? Although he was the leader of the Shadow Clan which dealt with the intelligence department and spies, this was somewhat unbelievable. Bayok, have you really betrayed me? I only follow Master Mok Jiangun. How dare you? Huan Yixian's voice rose slightly as his composure broke. The part of his neck not covered by the human skin mask reddened with disappointment. It might have been a natural reaction, believing he had been betrayed by someone he trusted. However, the reality was not betrayal. Bayok had merely been possessed by demonic monk, Mok Jiangun's loyal spirit servant. For Huan Yixian, who was unaware of the principles of mystic arts, vengeful spirits or evil spirits, this relationship was incomprehensible, but one thing was certain. This has gone wrong. He judged that everything was going awry. Huan Yixian carefully pressed the Laogong acupoint in his left palm with his middle finger. Along with this he opened his mouth while letting out his characteristic laugh. Oh ho ho. They say one shouldn't raise a black-haired beast indeed. As befitting the leader of a faction that dealt with spies, he was skilled at controlling his emotions. After all, if it was certain that his disciple Mok Jiangun and his confidant Bayok had betrayed him, he couldn't remain caught up in feelings of disappointment forever. Right now he needed to devise a way to break through this unfavorable situation. Shadow Clan leader Huan Yixian, continuously racking his brain, glared at Mok Jiangun and continued speaking. It's unfortunate. What is? Your grandfather, Guardian Zhang, might lament in the afterlife if he learns of your degeneration in abandoning the cult. At these words, a strange light flickered in Mok Jiangun's eyes. When he first learned that Shadow Clan leader Huan Yixian was a member of the Fire Faith Order, he had fabricated a situation to deceive him, calling his grandfather an unknown old master and pretending to be a member of the Fire Faith Order. Yet coincidentally his grandfather was indeed a member of the Fire Faith Order. At the time, Shadow Clan leader Huan Yixian had spoken as if he might know who Mok Jiangun's grandfather was. Since he kept it from you until the end, it's difficult to tell you right away. But it's certain that he was quite a high-ranking figure in our cult. Surprisingly, those words were true. He had unexpectedly come close to the truth. How interesting. Interesting? Are you saying this about the current situation? Yes, I never thought the person you had in mind would actually be him, Master. At Mok Jiangun's response, Shadow Clan leader Huan Yixian frowned. Although he was quick-witted enough to infer many things from small clues, he found it difficult to understand the intention behind Mok Jiangun's current words. However, right now his mind was more focused on escaping this place than conversing with Mok Jiangun. Huan Yixian, who had been pressing the Laogong acupoint in his left palm, relaxed the muscles in his arm. At that moment, pop-pop-pop-pack, something fell to the floor from the flesh of his left arm. As it touched the ground, pu-piu-piu-piu-piu-peng, gray smoke began to flow out. Seeing this, demonic monk who was possessing Bayok and aiming a sword at Huan Yixian's back, hurriedly tried to subdue him with the golden silk palm technique. However, Pupak. In that instant Huan Yixian dodged demonic monk's hand in the blink of an eye with a body technique that swayed like a willow tree, then grabbed his wrist and twisted it. Crack. Thud. He kicked him in the chest. Even though he was caught from behind, Shadow Clan leader Huan Yixian was also a supreme master. He was not an opponent who could be easily subdued with Bayok's body, which had reached the peak of supremacy. And, whoosh. By now the smoke had spread in all directions. Bayok, who inhaled it, frowned. The moment he breathed in the smoke, he felt his body go limp and start to stiffen. Seemed to be a poisonous mist. Looking at him convulsing as his body stiffened, Huan Yixian clicked his tongue and said, "You brought this upon yourself. The clan leader cared for you so much." This poisonous mist was Huan Yixian's trump card. It was a mixture of paralyzing poison and various other poisons, which he always kept hidden in his left arm through surgery. Created for use in the worst situations, it was a strong mist that could spread up to about 20 jang. Of course, an inner force master could block it with qi circulation, but they would have to waste time to do so momentarily. I'm not sure if it would work on a master who has surpassed the wall though. The only concern was that Mok Jiangun was a master of the transformation realm. Having already seen him contend with the society leader, he knew that his skills had surpassed his own, which was why he had resorted to using his trump card. Whether this would work on Mok Jiangun or not was uncertain, but he had to attempt to escape with the Holy Fire Priestess in this moment. Flinch. Shadow Clan leader Huan Yixian, who was about to swiftly move towards the carriage, unconsciously hesitated. This was due to the vast true qi filling the surroundings. What kind of true qi is this? The energy was so strong that it made his whole body break out in goosebumps. It was at that very moment. Whoosh. The gray mist, which had been so thick it obscured the surrounding view, suddenly began to move rapidly. It was creating a single flow. That flow. Could it be? Shadow Clan leader Huan Yixian lifted his head. The mist that had spread widely and was moving was gradually narrowing upwards, forming a vortex. Seeing this, Huan Yixian was dumbfounded. The vast true qi filling the surroundings was trapping the mist, making it swirl and sending it upwards. Eventually, the gray mist that had been swirling and surging upwards completely disappeared. This can't be. To be able to dispel the poisonous mist with true qi alone. This was something he had never anticipated. Who on earth could it be? Only those at the level of the 8 stars or above among the 5 kings could handle true qi to this extent, right? No, this should only be possible for someone like the society leader. In his field of vision, he saw Mok Jiangun extending his hand and slightly raising his index finger. The true qi flowing from the tip of his finger was nothing short of awe-inspiring. Shadow Clan leader Huan Yixian's eyes widened. Was it that child Mok Jiangun who did this? He unconsciously swallowed, his mouth having gone dry without him realizing. He knew that the speed of his martial arts development was incredibly fast, surpassing his expectations. But this was beyond the realm of expectations. What on earth had happened during the few months he was away on the confidential mission? Crack. Crack. Huan Yixian, who had been too shocked to speak, turned his head at the sound coming from beside him. There, his confidant and bodyguard Bayok was not only moving his stiffened body but a black liquid, presumed to be poison, could be seen flowing from the tips of his 10 fingers. What? Is he expelling the poison from his body? And in such a short moment? Although Bayok's martial arts were excellent, having been personally trained by him, he couldn't have responded this quickly after being suddenly exposed to the poisonous mist. What on earth was happening? As he was bewildered, creak, the carriage door opened. Someone came down leaning on a cane, and the moment Huan Yixian saw this person, various complex emotions clouded his eyes. The Holy Fire Priestess. He had wondered if the day would ever come when he would see her again after she was imprisoned in the underground prison of the Imperial Palace. Yet here he was seeing her again like this. Even in the midst of crisis, he couldn't help but feel a surge of emotion. Grind. What should he do? No matter how joyous this reunion was, he couldn't hand her over to the Heaven and Earth Society here. Even at the cost of his own life, he had to take her outside the organization, but it was then. Clan leader Yixian. She called out to him. He wanted to immediately call out to the Holy Fire Priestess and pay his respects, but fearing there might be eyes and ears from the intelligence department sent by the society leader's side, he couldn't hastily respond. As Huan Yixian was about to gesture to her not to speak, the Holy Fire Priestess uttered words he never expected. Immediately lower your body and pay respects to that person. What are you saying? The person before your eyes is the true master of the Holy Fire.